I'm not very good at zippers. But maybe if I had some help.
Yes, but I didn't go as far as they do in Playboy. I've never done that. I never would have. I never would, that's not my bag, as they say.
Don't you think that perhaps you should have the role?
Oh, well, I think if the right vehicle comes along, the right story.
You think you know Rita Hayworth? Think again. Behind the glittering gowns, the flawless smile, and the iconic red hair, Hollywood's greatest seductress was hiding secrets that would make your jaw drop.
Rita Hayworth was an enormously talented actress, and the temptation with so many of those great Hollywood beauties is to stop the conversation at their beauty. That's a huge mistake with Rita Hayworth.
From private scandals the studios desperately buried to wild affairs no one dared speak about, Rita left nothing to the imagination, and some of it is downright shocking.
She never seemed to find the right person in her life. There were substance abuse problems in her past. It really, unfortunately, took a tragic toll on her.
Was she a pawn in the studio system, or did she play the game, and everyone in it on her own terms? Let's find out. Nobody knows what really happened to me. Those were Rita Hayworth's haunting last words before Alzheimer's stole her memory and her truth. Behind the glamour was a nightmare of studio control, family betrayal, and buried scandals so dark even Tinseltown tried to erase them.
I just was in awe of my mother. I just looked up to her. I admired her and her beauty and her charm and her grace and her sincerity and her truthfulness. She was an amazing lady.
Rita Hayworth was born on October 17, 1918, in Brooklyn, New York. Her real name was Margarita Carmen Cancino. Her father, originally from Spain, was a professional dancer who introduced flamenco and other Spanish dance styles to America. Her mother, an American with Irish and English roots, had also been a performer, once working as a Ziegfeld Follies girl. From an early age, Rita's life revolved around dance and performance. Her grandfather, Antonio Cancino, was a renowned Spanish dancer who ran a dance school in Madrid. He began teaching Rita when she was just 3 years old, and her training quickly became a daily routine. Although she later admitted she didn't enjoy dancing as a child, she was too afraid to tell her father. Most of her childhood was spent rehearsing, leaving little room for play.
My father was born in Seville, Spain. My grandfather and my father were Spanish.
At 8, Rita appeared in a short film called La Fiesta. Soon after, her family moved to Hollywood in 1927, where her father opened a dance school that attracted big names like James Cagney. Growing up surrounded by show business, Rita's future path was set long before she knew it. By the age of 12, she was performing professionally with her father in their nightclub act, the Dancing Cancinos. To make her appear older and more exotic, her father dyed her brown hair black. To get around California's child labor laws, he took her to perform in adult clubs in Tijuana, Mexico. These long, demanding nights left her with little time for school, and she eventually dropped out after 9th grade.
I had been studying dancing since I was 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, 8, and I could dance, and I danced with my father. I had a fine teacher.
When Rita was 16, she performed with her father at the Caliente Club in Tijuana. That night, the head of Fox Film Corporation happened to be in the audience. Impressed by her grace and talent, he arranged a meeting with her. Although Rita was shy and spoke very little, he saw her potential and offered her a 6-month contract with Fox after a successful screen test. It was her first real step into Hollywood and the beginning of an extraordinary career. Rita's first roles in Hollywood were small, but they gave her valuable experience. She appeared in films like Cruz Diablo and In Caliente, often cast in exotic roles that reflected her Spanish heritage. These parts didn't make her famous, but they helped her learn the craft and find her footing in the industry.
I was so very busy learning dances and studying. I did miss playing with children my age and all that. But I didn't know that I missed it till after a little while.
Everything changed in 1937 when Rita signed with Columbia Pictures. The studio decided to completely reinvent her image. They dyed her hair a striking red to give her a more all-American look, and even raised her hairline through a painful electrolysis procedure to create what was then considered a more glamorous forehead. She also adopted her mother's maiden name, becoming Rita Hayworth, the name that would soon be known around the world. Her big break came in 1939 with Only Angels Have Wings, starring Cary Grant. Rita played Judy McPherson, the wife of a disgraced pilot, a role she almost didn't get because another actress had been cast first. But Columbia's head, Harry Cohn, believed in her potential and pushed for a screen test. Director Howard Hawks was immediately captivated by how she looked on camera and gave her the part.
People from the industry came often, executives, And they did ask my father if he would consider allowing me to make a test for film.
Rita's dancing skills soon took center stage when she was paired with the legendary Fred Astaire in You'll Never Get Rich, 1941, and You Were Never Lovelier, 1942. At first, Fred wasn't sure about working with her since she didn't have formal ballroom training, but that changed after one rehearsal. He later said Rita learned faster than anyone he'd ever danced with.
What else could I say? Everybody's trying to push him into marrying me.
Their first film was a huge success, so they teamed up again. Rehearsals for You Were Never Lovelier were grueling. They even practiced in the attic of a funeral home. During one particularly exhausting routine, Rita fainted, but true to her work ethic, she got back up and kept dancing. That relentless drive would become one of her defining traits, both on and off the screen.
And my father in the beginning said no, but in about 6 months later, he decided that I could possibly make a test. He allowed me to make an acting test.
Fred Astaire was so impressed by Rita's dedication and drive that he later called her his favorite dance partner ever, even ranking her above Ginger Rogers. Their chemistry and precision on the dance floor made both of their films huge successes, helping cement Rita's status as one of Hollywood's brightest stars. During World War II, Rita's fame skyrocketed, not because of a movie, but because of a single photograph. In 1941, Life magazine published an image of her kneeling on a bed in a black lace nightgown. It wasn't meant to be provocative, but the photo quickly became one of the most popular pinups of the era. Millions of copies were sent overseas to boost soldiers' morale, and she earned the playful nickname, the redhead we'd most like to be shipwrecked with. The photo turned Rita Hayworth into a symbol of glamour and desire, but it also trapped her in an image she could never fully escape.
The Life magazine picture of Rita Hayworth kneeling on a bed in black lacy lingerie was a striking image, and it became the most popular pinup image of the day.
In 1944, Rita starred alongside Gene Kelly in CoverGirl, Columbia Pictures' first major Technicolor musical. It was a career-defining project for her. Gene Kelly, still an up-and-coming star himself, collaborated closely with Rita to design innovative and visually stunning dance numbers. One of the film's most iconic moments, Kelly dancing with his own reflection, took 2 full days to film and became a landmark scene in movie history.
How long since you left Harvard?
Never heard of it. I beg you to be reasonable. How could I stick it?
Rita played 2 characters in CoverGirl, showing off her acting versatility in addition to her dancing. The film grossed over $3.5 million, a massive success at the time, and officially established her as one of Hollywood's top leading ladies. Around this period, Rita married the brilliant filmmaker Orson Welles, who often surprised her with champagne after long shooting days, a small gesture that brought a touch of romance to her hectic life. Then came Gilda, 1946, the role that made Rita Hayworth a legend. Her first appearance in the film, flipping her hair and saying simply, "me," became one of the most iconic introductions in cinema history. In one unforgettable scene, she performed a sultry glove strip routine to the song Put the Blame on Mame. The performance was daring, sensual, and shocking for its time, sparking controversy, censorship, and endless fascination.
I think that the publicity is always on the Rita Hayworth of Gilda, this incredibly beautiful woman. I think that's part of the myth.
With Gilda, Rita Hayworth didn't just play a star, she became one. In many places, Gilda was a massive box office hit, earning over $3.75 million, but it also had a downside. It typecast Rita as the ultimate femme fatale. She became Hollywood's symbol of seduction, a label she never felt comfortable with. Rita once famously said, "Men go to bed with Gilda, but wake up with me," revealing how deeply she resented being seen only as a glamour instead of a real woman. The film's impact went far beyond Hollywood. In 1946, in a bizarre and unsettling move, the U.S. military painted her image from Gilda onto an atomic bomb tested at Bikini Atoll. It was meant as a tribute to her bombshell persona, but Rita was furious when she found out. Despite that disturbing association, Gilda solidified her legacy as one of cinema's most unforgettable icons.
Rita Hayworth was a great dancer, and in Gilda, when she did the dance in that film, it was exciting, and that's the scene everyone remembers.
But Rita's personal life was far from the Hollywood fantasy her films portrayed. When she was just 18, she married Edward Judson, a man far older and far more experienced in the ruthless world of show business. Rita met him through her father, Eduardo Cancino, who believed Judson had the right connections to turn his daughter into a star. Judson wasted no time convincing the naive, sheltered Rita to marry him. They eloped to Las Vegas and tied the knot in a quick, quiet ceremony. A shocking move for a young woman raised in a strict Catholic household. Rita had spent most of her childhood dancing under her father's control, with little knowledge of normal relationships or independence. The age gap between her and Judson only made things worse. He treated her more like a business project or a possession than a wife. Soon after the wedding, he took over every aspect of her life, managing her career with aggressive ambition. To his credit, Judson did help transform Rita from a nightclub dancer into a Hollywood star. But that success came at a steep emotional price. Judson controlled nearly every aspect of Rita's life: her career, her finances, even her most personal decisions. Rita would later describe their marriage bluntly as slavery, not love. Despite her growing fame and success, Judson kept her completely dependent on him. He handled all her finances, but instead of safeguarding her earnings, he spent lavishly on himself and poured money into reckless business schemes. When they divorced in 1942, court documents revealed just how manipulative he had been. Judson had taken out multiple loans in Rita's name without her knowledge, leaving her nearly broke. Despite years of hard work and major film success, she walked away with almost nothing.
After a year, Errol Zanuck came in, and he thought I was too young to play it, and he said they were going to have Loretta Young play it. But oh, I was very upset.
But Judson's control went even deeper than money. He dictated which roles she accepted, controlled her schedule, and even pressured her into undergoing more cosmetic procedures to fit Hollywood's mold of perfection. The most disturbing revelation came later, that he had offered her to studio executives in exchange for better roles and favors, exploiting her to advance his own ambitions. The emotional scars from that time ran deep. Reflecting years later, Rita said, "From the first, he told me I couldn't do anything for myself. My personality crawled deeper and deeper into a shell. Her struggles didn't end with Judson." Around this time, Rita developed a complicated and destructive relationship with alcohol. It began innocently enough at age 17 while filming Dante's Inferno, when she was introduced to drinking as a way to calm her nerves. But by the time she married Judson, alcohol had become a coping mechanism, one he actively encouraged, believing it made her easier to control during tense studio meetings.
I never cried so much in my life. I wanted to play that role.
As her career soared, the pressure only intensified, and so did her dependence on alcohol. During the filming of You'll Never Get Rich in 1941, crew members began noticing her frequent hangovers and exhaustion. Instead of helping her, the studio enabled her. Harry Cohn, the powerful head of Columbia Pictures, kept her dressing room stocked with liquor, using it as yet another tool to control and manipulate her. Behind the glamour and fame, Rita Hayworth was quietly enduring a cycle of control, exploitation, and emotional pain, one that would shadow her for much of her life.
He was a pretty domineering factor in her life. He was there all the time and pushing all the time.
Rita felt increasingly trapped by the pressures of fame and the expectations that came with it. In a heartbreaking 1943 journal entry, she confessed, "I can't face the cameras without a drink anymore. The lights, the expectations, it's all too much." By 1946, during the filming of Gilda, her drinking had begun to interfere with production, causing delays on set. Still, Rita kept her struggles hidden, and the studio worked tirelessly to maintain her flawless public image. Her personal life, meanwhile, took a dramatic turn when she met Orson Welles, a romance that seemed straight out of a Hollywood script. In 1942, while Welles was in Brazil working on a film project, he saw Rita's Life magazine cover and was instantly captivated. He reportedly told friends, "I'm going to marry that girl." When he returned to Hollywood, he pursued her with charm, wit, and intensity, and Rita, drawn to his brilliance and confidence, fell deeply for him.
You couldn't help but notice her. I mean, you got 1,000 people out there and you looked right there she was.
Their whirlwind romance was passionate and unconventional. Welles even featured her in his Mercury Wonder Show for U.S. troops, performing stage illusions, including a memorable act where he sawed her in half. Then, on September 7, 1943, during Rita's lunch break from filming CoverGirl, Orson surprised her with a simple, spontaneous wedding at Santa Monica City Hall. Their only witness was Welles's close friend, actor Joseph Cotton. The press knew nothing about about it. Not even Columbia Pictures' powerful head, Harry Cohn, who disapproved of the relationship. That night, the couple casually announced their marriage on Wells's radio show, stunning the public. They skipped a honeymoon and went straight back to work. But their bond was genuine. Wells encouraged Rita to read, learn, and engage with the world beyond Hollywood. He wanted her to see herself as more than just a glamorous face, and she began to grow intellectually and emotionally under his influence.
He was a gentleman that if a young lady wanted to work at Columbia Pictures, she should put forth her charms so that he could enjoy it.
However, the studio wasn't pleased. Columbia had carefully crafted Rita's seductive, unattainable image, and her transformation into a thoughtful, independent woman didn't fit the brand they had built. Despite the tension, Rita and Orson shared moments of real happiness. On December 17, 1944, Rita gave birth to their daughter, Rebecca Wells, after an exhausting 18-hour labor that ended in an emergency C-section. A difficult experience that tested her physically and emotionally, but also marked one of the most meaningful moments of her life. Orson Welles rushed to the hospital just in time for the birth of their daughter, joyfully declaring, "She has my nose and Rita's everything else." For a brief moment, their lives felt complete, but the happiness didn't last.
And Rita Hayworth said, "Go ride a horse because I ain't it."
In 1947, the couple worked together on The Lady from Shanghai, a dark, visually stunning film noir that Welles hoped would revive both his career and their crumbling marriage. The studio agreed to produce it largely because Rita was its biggest star at the time, but Wells's creative decisions caused immediate controversy. He insisted that Rita cut off her signature red hair and dye it a stark platinum blonde, a move that horrified Columbia Pictures and infuriated her fans. The transformation was shocking. The glamorous redhead of Gilda was now almost unrecognizable.
I think that the studios were insisting on keeping up images. They were trying to correlate the image that was on the screen with what was happening in life. And many times, there was a conflict between the two.
The production itself was grueling. Wells's perfectionism bordered on cruelty, especially toward Rita. During one emotionally charged scene, he made her reshoot it 29 times, pushing her to tears. The film's legendary Hall of Mirrors sequence, one of the most technically ambitious scenes in cinema, took 11 days to shoot and used 2,500 pounds of glass. The final product was hauntingly beautiful, but behind the scenes, their relationship was in ruins. Rita later reflected on the experience, saying, "I guess I made it too realistic. He was the great love of my life, but on the screen, I had to play a woman who hated him." That line perfectly captured the tragic duality of their relationship, the passion and the pain.
He was constantly bothering her, and she really was affected by it.
Their marriage ultimately fell apart, not just from creative tension, but from Wells's repeated infidelities. While Rita was pregnant, he began an affair with 21-year-old Gloria Vanderbilt, a betrayal that lasted over a year. He was also linked to Judy Garland, one of Rita's close friends, a discovery that devastated her. On her 27th birthday, she stumbled upon Garland's love letters in Wells's study, a moment that shattered what little trust remained. The final straw came during filming in Acapulco. Rita caught Wells in his trailer with a local extra. Enraged, she grabbed a film canister and hurled it at him, barely missing his head. That explosive moment marked the end of their turbulent marriage, a union that had begun with magic and ended in heartbreak.
He was really quite mean. There again was another father figure who was more than that.
Filming of The Lady from Shanghai ground to a halt for 3 days as Rita and Orson tried, and failed, to reconcile. Hayworth did everything she could to save the marriage. She agreed to couples therapy, which was rare at the time, and even considered converting to Catholicism for Wells. Despite her efforts, by November 1947, she filed for divorce, citing extreme mental cruelty. Court documents revealed that Wells had been absent for 347 out of their 3-year marriage. What had begun with passion and promise ended in heartbreak and betrayal. Soon after, Rita's personal life took another dramatic turn. On July 3, 1948, at the Cannes Film Festival, she met Prince Ali Khan. Freshly divorced from Wells, she was captivated by Ali's charm and exotic appeal. Their romance quickly became a media sensation, with photographers following them across Europe. The couple married on May 27, 1949, in a lavish wedding at Château de Cagnes, near Cannes. The ceremony reportedly cost $1.5 million. million at the time, the equivalent of over $17 million today. More than 500 guests attended, 600 bottles of champagne were consumed, and 50 pounds of caviar were served. Rita's wedding gown, designed by Jacques Fath, cost $40,000, a fortune at the time.
Fred Astaire told me that she was one of the best dancers he'd ever danced with. He just thought that she was so graceful.
French law required them to marry twice. First in a civil ceremony on May 27th, and then in a religious ceremony on May 28th. Their wedding blended Western and Islamic traditions, reflecting their different cultural backgrounds. The event became a global spectacle, with Life magazine dedicating 14 pages to the nuptials. However, the Catholic Church declared the marriage illicit because Ali was Muslim and had been married before. Adding further tension, Rita was already 2 months pregnant at the time of the wedding, making their union as complicated as it was glamorous. Rita's new life as a princess seemed like a fairy tale, but behind the glamour, it was filled with challenges. She had married into a wealthy royal family and now carried the weight of countless new duties and expectations. On December 28, 1949, she gave birth to Princess Yasmin in Lausanne, Switzerland. The baby weighed 7 pounds 8 ounces, and Rita chose Switzerland to ensure Yasmin would have Swiss citizenship, giving her a neutral nationality. The birth made headlines worldwide, and Yasmin was showered with gifts, including a gold rattle from Ali Khan III, Ali's father.
Rita Hayworth wasn't the only Hollywood star that ever married a prince. As we know, Grace Kelly did too. But Rita Hayworth went through 5 marriages. She never seemed to find the right person in her life.
Despite the joy, Rita faced intense criticism from the press. They mocked her for gaining 55 pounds during pregnancy, claiming it clashed with her glamorous image. She also struggled with royal traditions, such as relying on nannies to raise Yasmin, something she deeply disliked. Rita frequently broke protocol to spend time with her daughter, determined not to let royal customs completely dictate her motherhood. Adjusting to her new role was not easy. She was expected to learn Arabic, study the Quran, and wear a hijab in certain situations, all stark departures from her American upbringing. In 1950, Rita joined Ali on a 3-month tour of East Africa, dubbed the Champagne Safari by the press. The trip highlighted the stark cultural differences between them and underscored how out of place she felt in royal life.
She wrote me a lovely long letter, and she said she was not sorry to leave her career. She thought she'd be married to Ali Khan for the rest of her life.
Rita struggled with the concept of polygamy, although Ali did not take other wives, and felt suffocated by the constant scrutiny. Every detail of her life, from her clothing to her behavior, was judged by the public and the media. The fairy tale marriage she had envisioned was, in reality, a complex balancing act between love, duty, and her own desire for independence. Language barriers added to Rita's struggles in her royal life. Most people in her social circle spoke French, which she found difficult to learn. Giving up acting left her feeling lost, as she missed the purpose and creative fulfillment her career had once given her.
Rita Hayworth was a successful dancer before she was an actress, and she really did have it all. She had looks, she had skills, she had the acting chop.
Meanwhile, Ali Khan's affairs soon destroyed their marriage. Just a year after their wedding, in June 1950, Ali was spotted dancing with actress Joan Fontaine at a Paris nightclub, the very place where he had first met Rita. Rita was at home caring for Yasmin and felt utterly devastated. This was far from an isolated incident. Rumors tied Ali to several women, including Pamela Churchill and model Bettina Graziani, and he was even photographed with multiple women on the French Riviera while Rita was back in America. The final blow came when Ali had a public affair with Olivia de Havilland, Joan Fontaine's sister.
I lived where he lived, and he lived in the south of France. He lived in Paris, he lived in London, and he lived in Ireland. It was all part of his life, and I became a part of it.
By early 1951, Rita had had enough. She left Ali and returned to the United States with Yasmin. Back in Hollywood, she faced immediate challenges. Columbia Pictures demanded $150,000 for breaking her contract to marry Ali, and having spent much of her own money during the marriage, she was nearly broke. Desperate to rebuild her career and finances, Rita agreed to star in Affair in Trinidad, 1952, her first film in years. The studio cleverly used her personal drama to promote the movie, billing it as "There Never Was a Woman Like Rita." Back in the the arms of Glenn Ford. The film was a commercial hit, but Rita struggled privately. She battled depression, her drinking worsened, and she frequently arrived late to work. At the same time, she was embroiled in a painful custody battle with Ali over Yasmin, adding emotional strain to an already exhausting comeback. Hollywood success had returned, but the price she paid for it was steep, both emotionally and physically.
There were substance abuse problems in her past. It really, unfortunately, took a tragic toll on her love life.
The custody battle over Yasmin became one of the most famous legal fights of the 1950s. Rita filed for divorce on September 2, 1951, citing extreme cruelty that was entirely mental in nature. The central conflict revolved around Yasmin's upbringing. Ali wanted their daughter raised as a Muslim in Europe and the Middle East, while Rita insisted she grow up as a normal, healthy American girl raised Christian. Ali even offered Rita $1 million, roughly $10 million today, if she agreed to raise Yasmin as a Muslim and allow him annual visits in Europe. Rita refused, declaring, "Nothing will make me give up Yasmin's chance to live here in America, among our precious freedoms and habits." The battle escalated in 1954 when accusations of neglect led a judge to temporarily place Yasmin and her half-sister Rebecca in foster care. Ali accused Rita of being an alcoholic and mentally unstable, while Rita argued that Ali's lifestyle was harmful to their daughter. The press followed every twist, amplifying the stress and making the legal fight a national spectacle.
I was always with Ali when he visited his people in different places. I couldn't work and be his wife. I made up my mind what I thought I should do, and that's what I...
Finally, in 1955, they reached an agreement. Rita won primary custody, with Yasmin being raised Christian in the U.S., while Ali was granted 2 months of visitation each year. Though she won, the fight left deep emotional scars. Rita's reputation suffered, her struggles with alcohol and depression continued, and Ali largely withdrew from Yasmin's life. Yet, this intense public battle also shaped Rita profoundly and later inspired her commitment to helping others. Rita's hardships didn't start in adulthood. Her childhood was incredibly traumatic. When she was just 12 years old, her father, Eduardo Cancino, began abusing her in ways no daughter should ever endure. This early trauma left deep psychological wounds that would echo throughout her life, influencing both her personal struggles and her resilience in the face of Hollywood's pressures.
She loved to just put on some old clothes and just sit around and chew the fat. She was a very down-to-earth person.
Rita's childhood trauma went on for years and left deep emotional scars. Dancing had been a central part of her life. She and her father, Eduardo Cancino, performed together at various venues. But behind the scenes, Eduardo was cruel. He forced Rita to stop attending school at just 14, dressed her in grown-up clothing, and taught her dances that were completely inappropriate for a young girl. This abuse happened almost daily, sometimes multiple times a day, leaving Rita confused and frightened. What made it even more complicated was that Eduardo wasn't just her abuser. He was also her dance partner and the person in charge of her budding career. Rita felt trapped, dependent on him for her livelihood, while fearing the very person who should have protected her. Her mother, Volga, suspected that something was wrong and tried to help by sleeping in the same bed as Rita when they were at home, but this offered little protection. During travel and performances, Volga had almost no control and may have felt powerless to intervene, especially since she had given up her own dance career to marry Eduardo and might have feared the consequences of speaking out.
He lived for beautiful women. He lived for gambling. He lived for drinking. He lived for all the things that he was so known for. He was a playboy.
Unfortunately, Eduardo wasn't the only one who exerted harmful control over Rita's life. Harry Cohn, the head of Columbia Pictures, dominated her career and personal life for 20 years. It began in 1937 when he signed her to a 7-year contract. Almost immediately, Cohn decided to reshape her completely. He changed her name from Margarita Carmen Cancino to Rita Hayworth and subjected her to painful treatments to raise her hairline and make her look less ethnic. He also forced her to dye her naturally dark hair red, creating the signature look that would make her a Hollywood icon. Between her father's abuse and Cohn's control, Rita's formative years were marked by exploitation and manipulation, shaping both the woman and the star she would become. A glamorous icon hiding deep, private pain. Harry Cohn's control over Rita Hayworth didn't stop at her career. It invaded every corner of her personal life. When she began dating Orson Welles in 1941, Cohn tried to break them up, insisting that being married would ruin her fantasy appeal to male audiences. To enforce that control, he even hired private detectives to follow her, report on her movements, and gather dirt he could use to manipulate her.
Knowing Rita, she would want some time at home. but she wouldn't have gotten that from him.
But Cohn's behavior went far beyond business control. He turned her workplace into a surveillance zone. Rita later revealed that he had bugged her dressing room with hidden microphones, listening in on her private conversations. She believed he also bugged the sound stages, making her constantly paranoid and unable to trust anyone. That loss of privacy, combined with the pressure to stay perfect, pushed her deeper into alcohol dependency, a struggle that would haunt her for the rest of her life. Even more disturbing, Cohn's abuse turns. Like many Hollywood moguls of the era, he was notorious for trying to coerce actresses into sleeping with him. Rita said no, repeatedly. The first time he made advances, she was just 18, new to Columbia, and terrified. After Gilda turned her into a superstar in 1946, he tried again, this time allegedly assaulting her in his office. Rita fought him off and escaped, but her defiance came at a price. Cohn retaliated by making her life miserable, assigning her grueling film schedules, fining her for minor lateness or uncooperative behavior, and spreading rumors that she was difficult. In 1948, he fined her over $12,000, a huge amount at the time for trivial reasons. Still, Rita refused to back down. She told her close friend and co-star Glenn Ford, "I'd rather die than give in to him." Harry Cohn also exploited Rita financially, even when she had become one of the biggest stars in the world. In 1937, she earned just $250 a week. By 1946, after her breakthrough in Gilda, her pay had risen to only $3,000 a week, still far below what stars at other studios were making. Cohn also profited by loaning her out to other studios. When she worked on Blood and Sand in 1941, Columbia pocketed $50,000, while Rita received a mere $450 a week. The studio made millions from her image without giving her a cent. Her famous World War II pinup photo was sold everywhere, yet she earned nothing from it. Even when her likeness was painted on an atomic bomb tested at Bikini Atoll, she wasn't consulted or compensated. Rita tried to fight back. In 1947, she went on strike to demand better pay and treatment, but Cohn retaliated by suspending her without pay and threatening to replace her with younger actresses. Financially strained and pressured by the studio system, she had no choice but to return under the same unfair conditions. She later reflected, "Harry Cohn thought of me as one of the people he could exploit and make a lot of money from."
He loved her, she loved him.
The toll of this exploitation was immense. Rita developed insomnia, anxiety, and depression, and her drinking worsened as the pressures mounted. By the early 1950s, her mental health struggles affected both her career and personal life. Despite generating millions for Columbia Pictures, she faced financial difficulties later in life, receiving no residuals from her films. Mismanagement of her finances left her struggling in retirement, proving that fame and fortune did not shield her from the consequences of decades of exploitation. In her final years, Rita Hayworth faced a heartbreaking battle with Alzheimer's disease, and tragically, she couldn't afford the proper care she needed. The decline began subtly in the late 1950s when she was around 40. On the set of Separate Tables in 1958, she frequently forgot her lines and required multiple takes, even for simple scenes. Co-star Burt Lancaster assumed she was just nervous, but the problem steadily worsened. By the early 1960s, her struggles were impossible to ignore. During the filming of The Money Trap in 1963, she became so frustrated with the director that she screamed and walked off set. At the time, everyone, including gossip magazines, the press, and even her own family, attributed her behavior to heavy alcohol use, which had been part of her life since the 1940s. Her daughter Yasmin believed the same. Rita Hayworth's final years were marked by confusion, frustration, and the cruel irony that the public, and even those closest to her, mistook the devastating effects of Alzheimer's for lingering issues with alcohol. Her decline was a stark contrast to the dazzling, controlled image of the glamorous star the world had once adored. That's it for today. See you in the next video. Until then, goodbye.